All the information that you need is out there right now. Go read a book, go listen to a podcast, find somebody that's been successful in the way that you want and listen to them. The bad news is you won't take all of their advice. You'll take some of it, some small percentage, but the reality is you're going to have to go out and try and suffer and fail all on your own to learn. Now, the great news is it works, and it works really well. And if you fail and suffer and fall on your face and get back up enough times and really reflect on it, then you're going to get better. And Ray Dalio has an amazing math equation, which I'm going to use so much. I think it's really, really powerful. And that is pain plus reflection equals progress. And I think that that's incredibly, incredibly true. And the human animal just needs that bit of pain. It is the compass that's going to allow you, if you reflect on why you're feeling that pain, what you did wrong, how you failed, you don't deflect, you don't make it somebody else's problem. You really just look at, how did I f this up? If you look at that and are willing to make the changes, you really will make progress. I don't see a way to really have grand scale change without the suffering. That's the truth.
Need motivation? Watch a Top 10 with Believe Nation.
Top 10, I got a top 10. Got my motivation high for my top 10. Gotta learn from the wise women and men. All my life, like 9 for my top 10, top 10, 9. This one's for my top 10.
Hey, it's Evan Carmichael, and I make these videos because you are probably the most ambitious person in your circle, but you know you're capable of more, and you get that push by surrounding yourself with the best. So today, let's learn from one of the best, Tom Bilyeu, and my take on his top 10 rules for success. Enjoy. Rule number 2, become self-aware.
All of the, self-improvement talk in the world is useless if you don't learn to become self-aware. Now, here's the great news. This is a process. Now, there are certainly some people that take to it a little bit more easily, and maybe you really struggle with self-awareness, but I'm going to walk you quickly through the process of how to gain some more self-awareness. So it goes like this. In your body, there's this thing called the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve is the biggest nerve in your body. The vagus nerve runs all over, everywhere, touches every system, goes into your gut, down your limbs, everything. Now, most people think of the body as the brain telling your body what to do. And then a little bit of information from the body. If you hurt yourself or whatever, you're going to get a pain signal or a pleasure signal. But for the most part, it's a top-down system. Read Lisa Feldman Barrett's book, How Emotions Are Made. That book flips all of this on its head. And what it explains is that it's basically an extrapolation of the fact that the vagus nerve, 80% of the data that it sends is from the body to the brain, only 20% from the brain to the body. Think about that. And that emotions start in the body. So a big part of self-awareness is getting in your body, feeling your body, figuring out how an emotion manifests itself. Do you start to get flush? Do you feel jittery? Are you anxious? Are you angry? Beginning to identify the sensations in your body, because the way emotions are made, you get a feeling in your body. Your body then maps that feeling on to what was happening the last time that you felt that. Oh, the last time you felt like that, you were angry. The last time you felt like that, you were scared. The last time you felt like that, you were in love, whatever. And your body tries to map, or your brain tries to map that body sensation onto a familiar state. And then once it goes, yeah, I know that this is fear, boom, all the responses that come with fear, and you go. And so one of the ways that people talk about anxiety, at a physiological level, anxiety looks very similar to excitement. And so one of the loops that a cognitive behavioral therapist, for instance, would tell you to do is to go, oh, I know this feeling. This is excitement. Not, oh, I know this feeling, I'm super anxious. Oh, I know this feeling, this is excitement. And you constantly work to reframe that feeling as excitement. Now, the super weird thing is it works. Your brain actually believes what you tell it. So your brain is quite literally coming up with a backwards compatible story to try to make sense of the feeling, but it also allows you to put a conscious reinterpretation on top of that feeling. So now you're able to go, oh, this isn't anxiety. This is excitement. I feel that what's coming is going to be fun. It's going to be exciting. And that's why my heart is beating faster. That's why my breath is getting more shallow, because I'm super excited to go do this thing. Now, when you first start doing it, of course, it sounds like BS and you're calling yourself out on it. But if you repeat it and you go through that process enough, it really does begin to come true. The next part of the equation is just getting really good at identifying the signal that your body's sending you. So instead of mapping it to sort of, 4 or 5 really basic primary emotions, fear, excitement, joy, sadness, whatever, like those really sort of primary colors of emotion, we get into a layer deeper and we start beginning to identify, oh, I get this I'm feeling flustered. Why am I feeling flustered? Oh, they're saying that I'm short and I'm insecure about my height. So, oh man, this isn't me that I dislike them. This is that they're tapping into my insecurity. The biggest argument my wife and I ever got into was over a cup of tea. Over a cup of tea. We got into this huge screaming match. It almost ended our vacation, what little vacation we had at that time. And I remember thinking, this is crazy. Like, we are legitimately yelling at each other. We are about to turn the car around on the freeway and go home and not go to our vacation over a cup of tea. And so finally, we just said, all right, hold on. What are we really fighting about? And that was the beginning of realizing my body sends me a signal. It's making me agitated. I blanket interpret this as, oh, I'm angry. Why am I angry? Oh, because they wasted time having this cup of tea. When in reality, it was this way deeper thing about respect. And I felt like she wasn't understanding how important it was to me to have taken time off to go on this vacation, to spend money. We were so poor, to spend money on a hotel. So I wanted to be there the second they would let us into that room to feel like I was getting the most out of my money. And for her, she's like, oh my God, I'm finally heard and understood that we're going on vacation. He's giving me some of his time. And so I'm going to start my day out with a cup of tea and just bask in, going slow and not, being hard charging for a minute. But we weren't understanding each other. And so we had this huge blow up over the tea. So beginning to identify in real time, my body's telling me something. I don't want to shove it into this primary basket of emotion. I want to figure out what's really going on. That some egregious percentage of the time, it's somebody's triggered an insecurity about something. You're not feeling respected. You're not feeling loved. You're not feeling smart. They make you feel dumb, make you feel poor, whatever you have your insecurities around. And when you can actually talk about those insecurities, now things begin to unlock. But it begins with that process of, I feel something in my body. What is it? Put a name to it, make it as nuanced as possible, and then articulate it out loud. When you start doing that enough, all of a sudden you're able to get to that very quickly, and that will change the game.
Rule number 3, have compassion.
A lot of people struggle with their family. Now, here is the hard reality to be faced. For a lot of toxic people, the right answer is to just distance yourself, to not be around them, to close that door, create the boundaries, and make sure that you don't have to deal with them. And the reality is that option is on the table even for family. But if you guys are anything like me, the idea of cutting them out of your life, even if they're difficult, I'm grateful that I don't have toxic people in my immediate family, that is for sure. But nonetheless, there are certain people that I wouldn't cut out of my life no matter what their mindset is. And so because that's the harder group to deal with, I want to address that first. So let's say that there's somebody in your life. It could be your parents, could be a sibling, could be a loved one. And for whatever reason, you're unwilling to carve out that boundary and just say, I'm not going to have them in my life. Then it becomes part of the toxicity is that you're taking on what they're saying. And this is where I want you guys to understand. You don't even have to make a big scene about it. When people try to put something on me, tell me that I can't be something, I can't do something, the way that I live my life is a mistake and I'm hurting myself and I'm hurting other people, I don't have to take that on just because they believe it. And then more importantly, I don't have to convince them otherwise. So it is okay for people to have a negative opinion about you. And one thing that I want you guys to understand is when somebody is coming at something with that kind of negativity, when where they live is a negative place, when Their worldview is this dark and gloomy place such that they feel the need to moralize to other people, to tell them what they're doing is wrong. That is such a gnarly place to live. It is a corrosive mentality. And so people that imbue that, not only do you not need to take it on, not only do you not need to convince them, but the thing that's probably going to serve you the best in that moment is compassion, to understand that living in that mentality of self-righteousness, of seeing the faults in other people without having the self-awareness to see your own mistakes, your own foibles, the problems with your own mentality, to be so outwardly focused that you feel that you need to go around telling other people how to live or to judge them. That is a punishment unto itself. And part of the reason that it's a punishment unto itself is anytime that you are looking to the outside world for the problems, you fail to recognize in yourself your own deficiencies, which stop you from progressing. Now, if I'm right, that progress is a foundational pillar to human happiness, which everything I know about life and humans reinforces that that is a true statement, then anything that stops you from seeing yourself clearly is something that holds you back. It stops you from having that progress. It stops you from building a life of joy. And at the end of the day, living a joyful life is really the sum total of this. So when people are coming after you like that, and they're not coming to you from a place of compassion or empathy, that darkness, that bitterness, that anger, that vitriol is its own punishment. It is corrosive. It does hold people back. It will stop them from ever having the joyful life that they want. The most joyful people in the world, the only fingers they ever point are thumbs, and they point them back at themselves. And when you look for what you can control, when you look for the things that you can do differently in your life to get a different result, now all of a sudden you realize that you're not out of control. You're not powerless. There's no reason to feel hopeless because you can get better. You can improve. You can recognize where you are deficient. You can recognize what your goals demand of you, and then you can just go about building that skill set, improving yourself, and getting the outcomes that you want in life. And that progress in and of itself is the reward. It is the thing that leads to joy.
Rule number 4, look for believability.
Ray Dalio has a principle called believability. Everybody needs a believability score. Now, this guy takes it to the extreme. And by the way, I just took a note for us to really implement this stuff here. We're going to have to figure out how everyone needs an actual numerical value that each of us can look at and say, this is Chase's believability score. This is Tom's believability score. So you really do have to like make it quantifiable. So if somebody's giving you advice about something that they have not done in their own life, then they have basically a 0 believability score. And somebody who has a 0 believability score shouldn't be pushing their idea like they know something. They should be asking a lot of questions. Now, when you're talking to somebody that's done it, Ray Dalio's saying is 3 times or more. If they've successfully done something 3 times or more, then they have believability in that area. So you want to find people that have believability, that really know what they're talking about, and then you should listen. You should ask a lot of questions. You should really come to understand it. If they haven't done that, they may still have amazing ideas, but what you need, because sometimes a novice has really fresh insights because they're just not stuck in the dogmatic ways of thinking that experts usually get into, but you need to be thinking about it differently. So rather than listening to their conclusions, you should be trying to understand their methodology. How did they get there? What is their process, their reasoning for making the statement that they're making? Now, if their reasoning is sound, then their conclusion may very well be worthwhile, but you have to understand their reasoning. So one of those two things. So either they are an expert in that area and thusly you should listen, or they are not, and you should only be thinking about what their process was to get to that conclusion. And then you have to be able to derive your own assessment as to whether or not you should listen to them. There's not going to be anything more empirical than that. All right, what is up, everybody? I want to talk to you about my good friend Evan Carmichael's book, right here, Built to Serve. I'm actually going to read you a section. There are some amazing parts of this book, and this is one of my favorite
It's under the title, Comfort is the Enemy of Greatness. And it goes, when you're comfortable, you don't get strong. When you have plenty of fresh air and no adversity, you crumble as soon as something gets hard. It's rarely the kids of rich parents who go on to do great things, even though they have all the advantages that money, connections, and education can buy. Why is that? Because they're too comfortable. People who are comfortable don't create great things. There it is. Evan Carmichael bringing the heat in his book, Built to Serve. Get a copy.
Rule number 5, be there for people.
One of the goals of my life is to get to the point where in 30 seconds or less, I can change the course of somebody's life through magic words, for lack of a better way to think of it. And I'm really trying. And I won't give up. But as of right now, the only solution that I have when you love somebody that is stuck in negativity is what I call just sit. If I know I'm going to spend time with them and I can't break them out of their negative ways, then I'm just going to sit and be with them, and I'm going to love them, and I'm going to make sure that they know that I love them. And I'll live my life without judgment, without needing them to change, without trying to preach to them. I'm just going to be with them and find things that we can talk about that's fun. There's almost always something that even the most negative person loves. And if you can find that thing, fishing, card collecting, Hawaii, whatever somebody's thing is, whatever it is that they like to talk about, and you get them onto that subject, you'll actually have fun. It's really surprising. My dad's wife is way into quilting. Now, I can't tell you how not into quilting I am, but she's really passionate about it. And having a conversation with her about quilting is so interesting because she's so passionate. And whenever you can get somebody on to something that they're passionate about, whether they're a positive person or a negative person, it gets to be a pretty fun place. So I just sit, I try to find things that they're going to be excited to talk about. And my whole goal is to make them feel loved where they're at. Now, I live my life the way I'm going to live it. I don't join them in negativity. I don't, go in on those conversations, but I don't want them to feel judged. I don't want to put distance between us. There's nothing worse than making somebody that you love and care about feel judged, which of course I was even though I was just trying to help, I didn't want to see them suffer anymore. In constantly trying, like saying, hey, you're doing this wrong. Like there's a better way. You'll be happier. It just made them feel judged. And it was putting tremendous distance between me and somebody that I cared about. So it works. It will work every time, but you have to let go and know that they're going to suffer until they're ready to change.
Rule number 6, train yourself to focus.
When you find even something like a conversation, you find that your mind is wandering. Some of this is just training yourself to focus. So we live in this eternally distracted society where we're constantly seeking those dopamine rewards that you get from checking your phone or whatever. And you didn't list that as one of the things that is your problem, but meditation is the answer, sort of regardless of what the impetus is, regardless of what it is that you find yourself being pulled towards, whether it's the squirrel, as you say, or something else. Training yourself to be able to extend the period of time where you're focusing on one thing is going to be extraordinarily helpful. And it can be as simple as just coming back to the breath. This does not need to be a grand spiritual thing that you do, though I think that there are huge benefits to meditation on that side, but just training your attention, learning to apply your attention to the thing that you want to focus on is a skill. All of this stuff is a process. And once you understand that it is a process, then it becomes something that you can train. And so sitting in a noisy room, it doesn't even need to be a quiet room. In fact, it might be better practice, certainly as you get more advanced, to do it in a noisy room so that you learn when something pulls your attention that you have control of bringing it back. And in a meditative practice that's focused around the breath, you would just come back to the breath. In a more mindfulness approach, you would use any sensation that you can to come back to this present moment. It could be the noise that you heard of reminding you that you're there in that room. It could be if your feet are starting to tingle because of the way that you're sitting. It's, feeling your back against the couch, whatever. Using something that is in that moment to remind yourself to be present, to be there, not to let your thoughts drift. And you'll find that in the beginning, like, man, every 3 seconds, my mind is wandering. I'm going to something else. And it may even take you minutes before you even realize that your attention has wandered. And in that moment, you bring yourself back to the breath. You give yourself some grace. You don't panic that you have let your mind wander, and you just keep doing that. And day after day, you will find in the beginning, it's every 3 seconds, and then it's every 10 seconds. And then you might be able to stay focused on your breath for 30 seconds. And one thing that I did a lot in the beginning is I would just count my breaths. And I would find in the beginning, I couldn't complete a single breath cycle and stay focused on my breath for the 4 parts of a breath cycle, right? The inhale, hold. The exhale, hold. Those 4 parts. That's my meditation practice. Very simple, 4-part, what they call box breathing. And it's just box breathing. Those 4 parts make up the 4 sides of the box. And I couldn't make it through a single breath without my mind wandering. And then I would get to the point where I could do 10 breaths. And then now I'd say my record is probably somewhere around 16 or 17 breaths. I don't think I've ever made it to 20. But that's a pretty long time when you're breathing slowly. I would say it's maybe 2 minutes, something like that. It's a long time, at least for me, to be able to keep my attention totally uninterrupted on one thing.
Rule number 7, understand people.
How do you deal with people that show irritation when you speak, but don't address what their problem is? I love this one. Okay, so here's what I do. I call that shit out in real time. Now, I don't call it out like, yo, what are you doing? I call it out like, hey, let me know if I'm misreading, but you really seem frustrated. It is so scandalous. Nobody ever does that. Nobody ever acknowledges the elephant in the room. People feel like they can say something however they want to say it, and you're only going to be able to comment on the actual words that they say, which is bullshit. That's some weird convention that just isn't true. And if you take the time to say, hey, totally, I could be misreading this, but you seem frustrated. No, I'm not frustrated at all. You're coming across aggressive. And if you can help me understand why, because if there's something that I'm doing or saying that's upsetting you, I want to understand it. And if you're saying that not as a gotcha, but really actually trying to understand it, like you're trying to disarm the situation, you are more than prepared to point those 2 thumbs at you. You're more than prepared for you to actually have done something that you didn't see that might have upset that person, they might really have a legitimate grief. And if you come at it from that standpoint and you're not trying to trick them, trap them, you're just actually trying to understand that desire to understand. And when they realize there's nowhere to hide because you're going to point out the way that something is being delivered. And by the way, I will throw people a lifeline. So when I say, hey, I'm really just trying to understand, you seem upset, frustrated, agitated, help me see, because if I did something, I would want to address that. And then if they keep demonstrating that they're angry, but keep saying that they're not, then I would just say, help me understand the level of aggression that's coming across now. Do you think I'm just misinterpreting it? Whatever. And so then we go down that path. Now, in a fantasy land, there's somebody nearby that you can actually pull in. And so at Impact Theory, we always tell people, don't go have one of these arguments alone. Grab another peer, or in the case of a company, somebody that you report to essentially moderate the discussion. So you can say, hey, if you think I'm misinterpreting the signal and that there is no frustration or agitation here, I'm perfectly willing to be told that I'm just misreading the situation. And so then if it's like they're having a hard time recognizing that they're being frustrated, if we were alone and there's nobody there to moderate, then I might say something by way of a lifeline like, is it possible that when I said this, that hit you the wrong way? And so you sort of pre-masticate the idea for them. Maybe you have an insight that they're unable to have, and recognizing that a lot of times people are angry, but they don't have the self-awareness to understand what's happening. So they're getting frustrated, they're angry about something, but they're not even sure why or what they're angry with. Now, as somebody who's had that happen to me, where I'm like, why the hell am I getting sharp all of a sudden? I have nothing but empathy and compassion for whoever's going through that. So again, I'm not trying to trap them. I don't want them to look bad. I'm going to help them navigate their way out of this. And I'm not trying to win. I'm not trying to prove anything. I'm trying to understand. And if you go into it trying to understand, Now the other person feels that. You can hand that olive branch, or you can say, hey, why don't we take a minute, go our separate ways, let's come back, rediscuss this, and I'll try to see if I can understand what I might have said that upset you, or to understand why I'm misreading you, or whatever. And if that's sincere and you're not just trying to trick them, then I think you will be shocked at how far that goes.
Rule number 8, focus on your abilities.
If Quest Nutrition and Impact Theory were to go out of business tomorrow and you were to lose all of your money and material possessions, what would you do? Starting from scratch, what are the first things you would do in the first 90 days? Oh God, this is awesome. Okay, so what would I do? Okay, step number 1. Mourn. So honestly, like I would allow myself a period of mourning, and I would define that. Now, I'm not going to stand still during the mourning period, but I think the reality is you have to, okay, who am I kidding? I wouldn't do that. I would defer my mourning. I've been through something like this, so I know exactly what I would do. I would defer the mourning, and I would immediately I would make a list of all the people that were in the world. So unless I'm gonna assume for a second that Impact Theory went out of business, for reasons other than that the industry, I'll assume the industry hasn't imploded. That's a very weird way of saying that. So I'm going to go to the 10 people that I've already earned credibility with, that know what I'm capable of, that know how I think, that know my process, that like me, want to be around me. And I'm going to go offer my services to them. And I'm going to ask for either no money, if at all possible, if I can, my wife and I can sleep on somebody's couch or something like that. And in fact, I may send my wife to get a job that at least makes some money so that we can eat, so that I can then begin going back into the industry and delivering value. I think it's the area that I'm going to be able to deliver the most value. And I would aim to get equity. That's me. So that people understand, look, my business may have failed, but here's my vision. Here's where I think I can add value. I would go in and I would have such a freakish level of detail for what I would be able to do for their company, and that I would be asking for equity. Equity is a big thing for me. So I wouldn't worry so much about salary. I would just make sure that I was making enough to eat. My ego isn't tied up in the house. So as much as I love the house and I love all the worldly possessions, my ego is tied up in my ability to learn and my willingness to suffer. Like if you really want to know what makes me an egomaniac, it's those things. So why do I do an 11-hour Q&A? Because I know nobody else can do it. So, and it's just like every minute that passes, I'm getting more and more arrogant about it and feeling great. And it's not like an ugly arrogance. It's like a fun arrogance of belief in myself. So I'm going to go to them with a scary detailed plan about the way that I'm going to help their company. It is not bullshit. It's not fluff. I will really be breaking down how I can help their company so that I can go in and crush that meeting and say, look, you know what just happened. I will own my mistakes. I won't bullshit. I'll say, this is exactly what happened. This is what I learned. This is why I'm not going to make those mistakes again. And this is what I think that I can do for your company. This is why I think that I deserve equity. And I'm just going to go down that list. Someone is going to say yes. I would first go down everything that I want to do in the film industry. And if I don't get any bites there, then I would immediately go down food, nutrition, and then literally guaranteed one of those two areas, somebody would bring me on as an equity partner, because my pitch would be ridiculous, to the point where if all they did was take the meeting, their business would be better for it. So I hold myself accountable to that, to real results. I would be the best interview they ever had. I would be trying to give away every idea for their company that I have, because I know ideas are a dime a dozen and all that matters is execution. So they will be in the meeting thinking, oh my God, if this is what he's willing to do just to get like a meeting with us, what would he be willing to do if we actually brought him on and started paying him something? So, and again, I would throw my ask financially in the dirt. And I would say, look, I'll work at this for a year. And if Lisa's working and we can afford to eat, I would work for free. And I would say, I'll do this for a year. I have no problem. What I want is the equity. And then I would work my way back up. So yeah, I actually get excited answering that question, because if you can't face the loss of all your material possessions with excitement, it means that you don't believe in your abilities, and you need to spend time focused on your abilities.
Rule number 9, be defenseless.
You're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. That's just true. But now it's become so common to say, and it's like every Instagram post, that I fear it's going to lose its meaning. Who are you spending time with? Because if you're spending time with people like you, you're spending time with people like me, I'm raising you up, or I'm just not going to spend time with you. So it's like, now if you get in a mix of people like that who are like, man, we'd love for you to raise up to this level, but if you don't, it's fine, but we're just not gonna spend time with you. All of a sudden, that desire to belong to something powerful that you can see is gonna lead you to your dreams. And I remember saying to my wife over and over and over, they are the surest path to my success. I don't know anything else. I just know if I can hang on to these guys, they're gonna make me better. And so that was through all the years of being embarrassed and developing actually massive anxiety, because I was always behind. I was always the dumbest person on the phone. I was always the dumbest person in the room. And it was like, was I gonna be willing to emotionally go through that to get great? And most people can't. So here's the thing. Now imagine, I'm not the only person they said, hey, this is a startup, you can have any job you want. I saw 12 people, maybe more, come and go over the years. They just couldn't emotionally deal with it. And so I remember thinking to myself, why is it that I'm able to do this? And the answer was I could self-soothe faster than anyone else. So I would get kicked in the face and I would do something really dumb. I'd be called an idiot, told how stupid I was. And then I'd just be like, all right, I need to recenter. And that just became my obsession. I need to be able to emotionally get back to complete neutral so fast that you don't even see it register on my face.
How'd you do it? How do you do that?
Literally practicing. So remember, at the same time I'm reading about the brain, voraciously, I'm reading about people that understand human behavior, I'm getting into cognitive science, neuroscience, like really going into it. So I'm reading all this stuff going, whoa, we're just a chemical processing plant. There are physiological hooks into these chemicals. So, hey, if you're mad, scared, whatever, but you force yourself to laugh out loud, you will change your neurochemical state. And you literally, your experience is the neurochemistry. So I was like, whoa, so I could be in a situation where I'm being berated or I legitimately mess up and it costs money and it's like, whoa, that's on me and it is nobody's bad but my own. And I realized that what most people do, their strategy is to deflect it. It's your fault, it's not my fault.
Yes.
So I started thinking of this as a metaphor. People are throwing gold at me. They're throwing it really hard and I can put a shield up and deflect it, but then I lose that piece of gold. If I drop my shield and just take the pain, let it hit me in the head, then I bend down and go, this thing, which was me being stupid, there's a lesson here. And now I have this piece of gold. But the whole thing is I have to be defenseless. So I have to own it, I have to take it, I can't fight. If someone is like, this to this day, if our team is like, hey, there's something we need to point out to you, I'll do this. I square up to it. I want them to know, like, hey, I want to hear it. I want to know. Like, I want to be literally physically open. I'm not going to close down. I'm going to do everything I can to square off, to open myself so that they know I'm receptive to the criticism, right? Because that's the nugget of gold. What I know is it's going to hurt. It's going to sting. But if I can emotionally recenter so fast you don't even see that I went through something, now I can just process, how do I take this information you've given me and get better?
And rule number 10, the last one before some very special bonus clips, is lean on the dark side.
80% of my time I spend focused on the beautiful things that I want to create, the amazing things, the mission that I'm on, how I want to help other people, right? I talked about goals being exciting to you and honorable. So they uplift you and other people. And I try to spend as much time as I can there. And that's gotten me through a lot of difficult times, to think about the people I'm trying to serve, to think about the way that I'm going to help people. We end every team meeting at Impact Theory with a connection to our community. So whether it's playing a video of somebody who's changed their life or reading a letter that somebody's written us about how the content that we create has moved them forward in some meaningful way. And they're beautiful and it's amazing and it feels so good. But there are times where I'm so fatigued. There's a great quote by Vince Lombardi: fatigue makes cowards of us all. And there are times where I'm so fatigued, all the beautiful things in the world are not enough to keep me going. And I'm just done. I'm spent. I'm past the David Goggins 40%, where he says, when you think you're broken and couldn't possibly go another step, you're only 40% of the way there. Okay. The beautiful things will get me past that hurdle. But when you're actually 80% of the way there, 90% of the way there, really close to being fully spent, the thing that I lean on in that moment is the dark side. The people that want me to fail. The people that are on my list, as I call it. There are people that have tried to trip me up, that want to see me lose, that come at me, go behind my back, whatever. And I put them on a list. And I never think about the list more than 20% of the time because that's a dark place to be. But when I'm really tired and I'm in danger of cowardice, I think about those people. And it's an ugly energy, but damn, is it powerful to say, I'm not going to let them win. I will, as David Goggins says, take their souls. And it's really powerful. And it's one of those things that I often get pushback on because it is ugly to say that I think about these people and I think about destroying them and beating them and outperforming them in every way and dunking in their face and doing better than them in life and watching them just get demolished by my performance. But it's motivating and it works. Now, if you spend too much time there, you slide into bitterness, you slide into anger, it's resentment, it's all about them. But man, let me tell you, if you get that balance right, 80-20, 90-10, man, it's really profoundly powerful. There is a reason that evolution has given you anger. There's a reason that evolution has given you rage. There is a reason that evolution has given you righteous indignation.
Now I've got a special bonus clip that I think you're going to enjoy. But before that, it's time for the question of the day. I want to know, what was your single biggest takeaway from this video and your plan of action for the next week? When you watch a video and just get motivated, you have a 35% chance of actually following through. That's what the science says. And that is not good enough, Believe Nation. We need to do better. When you actually get motivated and then create a specific plan of action for what you're going to do this week, you have a 91% chance of following through. And when you publicly commit to somebody else, like leaving a comment below on this video, it jumps even higher. So I want that for you. I want to know your single biggest takeaway from this video and your plan of action for the next week so I can celebrate with you.
Always being honest with who you are, where you're at, what is true for you, even if you can't say it to the outside world, always being willing to admit it to yourself is so unbelievably powerful. That was something that I had this really big crisis in my early 20s where I realized I was telling everybody that I wanted to be successful, but the way that I was acting was like I just wanted to feel good about being smart. And I didn't know enough to be successful if I was always trying to be the smartest person in the room. And so they came into conflict. And I remember the room I was in when that occurred to me that, hey, if what you want is to just feel smart, you need to quit this company, get the hell out. No judgment. If that's what you want to do, fine. I don't want to live in this sort of sketched out world anymore of where I talk this big game, all my ambition, all the things I'm going to do. But in reality, I spiral out of control the second I feel stupid. And I mean, it was devastating. I would lose days to being upset and traumatized and thinking badly about myself when something would occur that made me feel dumb. So anyway, I would argue for bad ideas just because they were mine. I needed to feel smart. And I realized, okay, hold on. This is a thing. So no judgment, be honest with yourself. And that opened the world to me. Once I wasn't trying to pretend that I was a certain way, and I was just really honest with myself about who I was at that moment. I was changeable and I was willing to believe that. But in being honest with where you're at, now you can put together a plan of action.
Listen and listen well, because no truer words are ever going to be fucking spoken. You can do anything you want without limitation. Whatever it is that you decide you want to make come true in your life, you can do that. It is going to take an inhuman amount of work. You're going to have to be prepared to break yourself in half. You are going to have to learn more than anyone has ever learned. You're going to have to push yourself harder than anyone has ever asked you to push yourself before. You're going to go way beyond your breaking point. You're going to run until you vomit. You're going to study until you fall asleep. You're going to push and push and push, and then you're going to push some more. And when you hit the limit, you're going to push again beyond that. You're going to force yourself into an adaptation response. And why? Because as Malcolm X said, the future belongs to those who prepare for it today. So if you don't put the work in today, if you don't do the unending, back-breaking work of developing yourself into something greater, the world is going to pass you by. The people that are going to own it are going to be the ones that did that work. And the one promise that I can make you right now is that somebody out there is outworking you. Somebody right now is doing the things that I'm saying. Somebody right now is doing the work of failing and getting up and getting better and pushing themselves and triggering that glorious adaptation response that makes humans the apex predator. Someone right now, they're putting in that work. And if you don't, the future is going to belong to them. And as Martin Luther King Jr. said, if you can't fly, then run. If you can't run, then walk. If you can't walk, then crawl. But whatever you do, you have to keep moving forward. It's not okay to make excuses. It's not going to slow people down. It's not okay to ask the world to stop so that you can step out front. It's not okay to expect little of yourself and demand great rewards. The only thing that's okay is to be in line with the way that the world really works. And if you want to be great, you've got to become capable of greatness. You've got to develop your skill set. You've got to take what you have now, and if that's crawling, then crawl, but you drag yourself ever forward to a vision of yourself that is so clear and so specific that nothing could knock you off your path, because you, my friend, know exactly where you're going. You're willing to pay whatever price it takes to get there. And no matter what anybody says, no matter how many fucking hecklers come for you, no matter how many people try to throw dirt on you, try to stop you, try to knock you down, no matter how many people come for you at night while you sleep, you will rise and you will keep pushing forward and you will get better every day. And no matter how many times people chop at you, knock you down, knock you off the path, you will get back on. You will crawl till you can walk, you will walk till you run, and then you will run until you fly. And that, my friends, is the only path forward. So if you want a future that makes you happy, if you want a world that you're excited about, get your ass out there and earn it. Recently, you talked about ditching patience, but I think patience helps in the long run. Why do you think ditching patience will help? This is so fascinating. So patience in the long run is the only thing that I can tell you is guaranteed to fail. There may be some advantage to the reason that people are telling you to have patience in the short term, because here's what anybody telling you to have patience is trying to get you to understand one very simple thing. Whatever you're trying to accomplish, it takes a very long time. And so if you go into it and you're playing this short-term gain game, chances are you're going to do things that are damaging to your reputation long-term. That to me is not patience. That to me is playing the long game. You want to play the long game. You want to be authentic. You want to be a good person. You want to do good things for people. You want to invest in other people, not because you're being patient. Because patient to me is a very passive position. It's saying, look, I'm not going to go all out today, because at the end of the day, this is going to take time. This is a marathon. It's not a sprint. And so I need to pace myself. That's what people hear when you tell them to be patient. I know, because I've seen it play out thousands of times. So what happens when you tell people be patient is you're telling them, hey, look, this is going to take a really long time anyway, so pace yourself. Here's the reality. And you're going to feel the truth of this instantly. Most dreams never come true. Most of the people that you know, most of the dreams that you've had for yourself, they haven't come true. Why not? Because they're brutally difficult. The world is going to resist you. It is not going to be easy to overcome entropy, to overcome inertia. The only way that you're going to overcome that stuff is to go all out every day, knowing that it's going to take a long time. But the only way that that dream is going to come true, even over that long period of time, is if you're going all out every day. So literally a mantra in my life, and I cannot stress this enough. This is a cornerstone of why I've been able to achieve at the level that I've been able to achieve. Every day, everything I'm doing, I'm asking, why can't it be done faster? Why can't I accomplish more right now? That it's not okay to put something off even till tonight. I need to do it right now. Now, you need to get very good at prioritizing, because if you're trying to do everything right now, you're going to accomplish nothing. And if you're trying to be gimmicky or do shortcuts, all of that's going to fail, because none of that is playing the long game. But if ever you're allowing yourself to slow down because you simply are acknowledging that this stuff takes time, I'm telling you, it's never going to work. This is critical. Whatever it is that you're going to do in your life, if you have any interest in doing something extraordinary, if you have any interest in performing better than other people, if you have any interest in doing something that will be remembered, this is the takeaway for you. Pick one thing and do it with force and determination. The only way that you're going to be able to push past the mountain of obstacles that is going to try to stop you is to have maniacal focus, to know exactly what you want, to have clarity of purpose, to have a crystal clear vision in your mind of what you're trying to accomplish, something that you could tell anybody in a single sentence. When you have that and you stare at it all day and you think about exactly how you're going to make it happen and you tie your identity to it, then you've got a chance. Because then, my friends, when that obstacle comes before you, you will muster the force that you need to destroy that obstacle. And this is where this kind of aggressive language and thinking is going to help you, because they will not go quietly. And that's the problem that a lot of good, gentle, beautiful souls have, is when the time comes, they don't muster the force that's required to get what they want. And I know you know, like I do, somebody who's a beautiful person, who's a good human being that we wish good things for. But sometimes bad things happen because they don't stand up for themselves. And as Jocko Willink said, most of us aren't defeated in one decisive battle. We're defeated one tiny, seemingly insignificant surrender at a time that chips away at who we should really be. How important is rest, and how much do you get of it? I'm trying hard at the moment to pursue my dreams, but sometimes I feel out of balance because I lack sleep, for example. All right, boys and girls, I'm telling you, I'm just gonna be super arrogant for a second. I built $1 billion business without setting an alarm. Prioritize sleep. I work a lot. In fact, I'll take the Pepsi challenge. Anybody that wants to go head to toe with me in terms of what you get done, not just raw number of hours aimed at a computer or whatever it is that you're supposed to be doing and performing totally suboptimally. I'll just take the Pepsi challenge on that. I always prioritize sleep. I always prioritize my psychological optimization. So for instance, if I'm working around the clock, in fact, this happened not too long ago. I was just working so many hours and it ended up encompassing too many things that took more energy than they were giving, that I started to feel anxious. In fact, I started to feel claustrophobic. That's exactly how I felt. I wanted to crawl out of my own skin. I don't know how else to explain it. It's just like, it was driving me nuts. And I realized I need to chill for a minute. I need to meditate. I need to take an hour and go do something that's still moving me towards my dreams, because that's my thing, but that I really enjoy. And so maybe in those moments I go read a comic, because we're building a comic book publishing empire. So that's part of what I need to do anyway. But reading the comic is fun. I also need to meditate and just literally breathe from my diaphragm. So get the sleep that you need. That's super critical. You do not need to set an alarm. Sleep as much as you need to. And by the way, if you're doing things that are exciting to you, I know people, some of you are gonna believe me because hopefully I've earned the credibility with you up to this point, and some of you are gonna call total bullshit. You can ask my wife. I can set an internal alarm clock in my mind only if I'm excited about something or really stressed out, but that's a whole nother thing, which I try hardly to do ever. But when I'm really excited about something, I can set an internal alarm clock. This morning, I told myself, wake up at 4:15. What time did I wake up, boys and girls? Not 4:14, not 4:16. I woke up at 4:15 because that was the time that I told myself to wake up. I can usually get within 5 minutes of what time I tell myself to wake up. It doesn't always work. And if I'm tired, I don't give myself that edict. I tell myself to sleep as much as I need. But when I'm really excited about something, there's something I want to get up and work on, and I'm afraid there just won't be enough time, and it's a reasonable amount of sleep. I'll say anything north of 5 hours, I can usually get myself to just wake up. So get the sleep. Prioritize cognitive optimization, because then you're efficient, and efficiency is the name of the game. So sleep, sleep, sleep. I am not a guy proposing set your alarm, get up at 4 a.m. no matter what. It's not me. Go to bed early, get your sleep, meditate, get in a good, peaceful, calm, creative state so that you can really crush it. Would you be in favor of college students or anyone that may be considering it to take some time off to travel and experience as many new things as they can in order to find themselves? So absolutely, but not to find themselves. So you create yourself, you decide who you want to become, but figuring out who it is that you want to become, that is something that requires you to encounter a lot of things, to experience a lot of life. This is Kevin Kelly's whole notion of don't prematurely optimize. I think that some of the best advice young people are ever going to hear is you really want to go out and explore, discover new things so that you can find what it is that you find interesting. Then that's where the discovery process ends and the developing process begins. Then you begin to create this notion of who you want to become, and then you go down the path of becoming that, gaining those skills, developing mastery in a certain area. But first, really make sure, because you're going to give at least a decade of your life, if not more, to any one thing. So making sure that that's something that fills you up instead of chipping away at you is really, really important. And the only way to do that is to experience a whole lot of stuff. So yeah, I have no beef with taking that time off to go explore and discover new things. I think it's incredibly powerful. You've got two choices in life. Choice one, you can become somebody else. Choice two, you can become yourself. Now, I really wish that there was only one choice, but in truth, there's not. And most people choose to try to become someone else because it's a roadmap. It's points in a direction. You see someone, you respond to something, you admire them, you want to be like them. And in that process, you've made your decision. In that process, you've decided to become somebody else. You have mistaken the finger for the moon. Instead, you need to understand that being inspired by somebody does not mean to become that person, to become that which inspires you. It is to understand fundamentally, what is it about that thing that excites you? What is it? What is its essence? And when you can find its essence, then you can find out how it would apply to you becoming you. And as Zen Shi says, a flower does not think about competing with the flower next to it. It just blooms. And that's really your job, is to see the outside world, to see the flower next to you, to understand the amazing things that are happening all around you, all of the incredible people and the essence of what they have and what it is that they've done to bring inside yourself and find out what does that look like when it's me. Not what do I look like when I'm them. And once you understand the difference between that, then you can really begin to be something unique. You can become that thing that you were meant to be, that thing that makes you feel alive and whole. And that's it. That's the secret. You're just trying to be something, not that's just inspiring to other people, but that you actually want to wake up every day and be. And that's the thing about it. There's no escaping you. Whatever you become, a lie, the truth, somebody else, yourself, whatever it is, you're going to spend every day of your life there. And as Albert Einstein said, everybody's a genius. But if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing that it's stupid. And that's what confuses people. People believe that they're dumb because they're not finding their path. They're not defining things based on what excites them and what they want to live with every day. They're just looking to what the outside world says is good. And I think it's incredible that there are other people doing things that are so extraordinary that we aspire to be like that. But you have to understand the difference between being like someone and trying to actually be them.
We talk of self-esteem in one of two ways. Either as the sole determinant of success or as the ultimate enemy. Most people build their self-esteem around their accomplishments. They feel good about themselves if they're making the most money, they're dating the hottest person, or they've built the best product. They get caught in the rat race of validating themselves against the person who happens to be standing next to them. But there's a fundamental flaw with this equation. Because when your ego is that attached to your success, it's devastated by your failures. And what the most successful people know is you cannot leave your self-worth in the hands of anyone else. The most successful people get their pride from a different source, one that does not fluctuate with their successes and failures.
So I knew I couldn't give up my self-esteem. I couldn't accept some weird role where I just was always the dumbass sitting in the corner. If I pride myself on being smart and you tell me I'm dumb and you put up a pretty good case for it, that's going to damage my self-esteem. My self-esteem in that situation is very fragile. If, on the other hand, you tell me that I'm dumb and I build my self-esteem around being the learner, now I'm going to say thank you. Please tell me in what way that I'm dumb, because you will open my eyes to something that now I can address, and I can go learn about that thing, and I will have a new skill, and I can go out and push and execute against that skill. One of the most powerful things that you could do is become the person that admits that you're wrong really fast. And it's crazy how much credibility you will earn with people simply by admitting I was wrong. Like 30 seconds ago, I was fighting so hard for something. I was really fighting for my position, and then somebody says something and I realize that's actually better. Imagine that. The more you try to tell me I'm dumb, the more areas that you point out that I'm weak, the more things you tell me I need to learn about, my eyes are open to something that, if true, I'm going to go down that path and I'm going to learn how to do that. And that is absolutely critical. What are your thoughts on changing reality with thoughts and repetitions? Will this work, or is it just a theory? Okay, so there's no doubt that the way that the brain rewires itself is through repetition. Neurons that fire together wire together. So you very much can create reality. I want to say that it isn't, unfortunately, like the Matrix, but it's so close that you might as well think of it like that. But to me, that's just a metaphor to get people to understand that you really can influence your hardwiring in your own brain, and you certainly can influence the outside world by gaining a set of skills that allow you to go out and manipulate it. And I'll give you a super easy example. Learning to build a house means you can actually build a house, and you can manifest that and turn a tree or concrete into a physical structure.
Now, the Matrix to me is a simple metaphor. I don't actually believe that we're living in a computer simulation, and even if we are, I don't think that it matters. But what does matter is your entire life is being lived by your brain. Now, what do I mean by that? If you know a guy named David Eagleman, he wrote a book called Incognito. In the book Incognito, he makes one thing abundantly clear. You live in a virtual environment, whether you realize it or not. That virtual environment is created by the 3 pounds of squishy material between your ears. Think about this. Your brain never touches light. Your brain is encased in a bone box in total darkness, and yet it takes photons that fall on the eye and turns it into electrochemical stimulus, and from that, it paints this environment. It fakes the sense of depth. Think about this for a second. There's not some little image of this room projected into the back of my mind. This is all being turned into electrochemical stimulus, and my brain then manufactures this environment. There's actually a dime spot blank part in your field of vision where each optic nerve connects to your eyes, and yet you have no experience of it. That is completely invisible to you, even though it's massive and it's dead center in your eyes. The reason that you don't experience it is because your brain fills it in. Your brain makes a guess as to what would be there, and your brain is so good at guessing and so good at presenting it as if it were real that you have no sense. It is completely seamless to you. When I heard that, I remember getting the chills and setting the book down and saying, my brain is lying to me. That rat. Now, the question becomes, if this is all made up, if the sense of distance between you and I is completely manufactured by my brain and it's not real, meaning what I see of it, it's real enough in that if I walk, I'll hit you at about the point that I'm expecting to bump into you because my brain can create that sense of distance. But it's doing it by translating those signals. It's manufacturing this space. So if that's true, and my brain fills in the gaps, does my brain also have biases? And the answer is yes. Neuroscience has gone deep into how many different biases that we have as humans. I'll give you one because this one is profoundly impactful. You're more likely to believe something negative than you are something positive. Now think about how that can echo through your life. Each of us has to realize that all of the beliefs that we have in our life are choices. The scary part about the most important beliefs in your life is most of them are invisible. I'm going to give you a couple questions that will highlight invisible beliefs that you have that are controlling your life, that are exactly why I say the Matrix has you, because depending on how you answer these questions will determine your life. And if you don't recognize something scary in your own answers, think about the people that you love, that you want to help and you can't, and you wonder why, the answer is almost certainly related to how they answer some of these questions. Number one, this comes from Einstein. He said, the most important decision any human being must make is whether or not you live in a friendly or a hostile universe. Now, he could have said realization, but he didn't. He said decision. You have to decide, because there is no empirical truth. You don't live in either a friendly or a hostile universe. You decide, and that perception, that viewpoint from which you judge everything else that happens in your life will be colored by whether or not you think it is a universe that is working for you or against you. And it's a choice. But most people think of their viewpoint as being patently real, as being just objective and true. And so they never stop to question the fact that they actually decided that at some point, either because their parents acted in accordance with that it was either hostile or friendly, and they just absorbed that, or their friends or the people that they work with or whatever. But somewhere along the line, they came to believe that they live in either a friendly or a hostile universe. But you could change right now. Right now, you could make a different decision. And if you believe that the world is working against you right now, you could choose to believe that it's actually working for you. And in making a fundamentally new and different assumption, it empowers you to move forward. And this is something that I will repeat in this talk. The reason that matters is human beings do not invest energy in things that they don't think will yield a result.
How do I find my passion? Asking how you find your passion makes the assumption that your passion has been lost somewhere. Your passion has not been lost. Your passion has never been developed. Passions are created, they're constructed, they're developed. And it starts with interest.
One of the greatest misconceptions of our time is that your passion is something hidden inside of you. Michael Jordan wasn't born dreaming of slam dunks. Bill Gates' first word wasn't Microsoft. Even Elon Musk didn't start by reaching for Mars. But there is something different about these extraordinary minds. But it isn't what they were born with. It's something they had to learn to build, brick by brick.
Now, once you have that, you've got to start going deep into gaining mastery. And it's in the process of gaining mastery that you're going to find out if that interest turns into a love, then turns into a passion. People who are passionate are willing to fight through the boredom. Now, they're not doing it thinking, oh my God, this is so much fun. They're thinking, I want to win. I want to play at the highest level, and I am willing to break myself in half. And this is the thing that I cannot get entrepreneurs to understand. If you want to be great, I promise you, as Tommy said, you already have in you what you need, which is the ultimate evolution-approved ability to adapt. So you can change to get great. You can change to become whatever you need to, but it is the people that are willing to literally break themselves in half to get the result that they want.
Your passion isn't something hidden inside of you that's going to reveal itself magically over a cup of coffee. It is not going to come knocking at your door. It's something you have to go out and build.
As Confucius said, when it's obvious that the goal cannot be reached, don't adjust the goals, adjust the action steps. That may be the single best piece of advice you're ever going to get. Write that down, burn it into your flesh, tattoo it on your soul, do whatever you need to do to remember that once you set a goal, once you've decided in your life there is something that you're going to make come true, don't let anything stop you from reaching that. But the reality is, as you go, things are going to get in your way. There will be an inevitable slew of obstacles coming at you. But when it gets so hard that you realize that the path that you're on is simply not going to take you where you want to go, rather than give up on what it was you said you were going to do, find a different path. And in that, when you really make that the cornerstone of your identity, that you refuse to bend or be broken by obstacles, by challenges, but instead you rise to those challenges. You go over, under, through them. You do whatever you have to. You devise any plan to find a way through. then your life will change. Once that becomes your reaction, to not change that thing that meant so much to you, that you dedicated your life to making it come true, that you don't change that, but rather you find another way, you tap into your creativity, you find somebody that can help you, you do whatever it takes to get on the other side of that, you do whatever it takes to build that life that you want to see. But if your reaction is to change your goal, to make it easier, to move it closer, to be less of who you could be, simply so you can check a box, you're never going to have anything that's worth having.
Why? Like, if you had to boil it down, why do most people fail? Got it locked? The answer is they never start. Now, the reason that most people never start is because they don't think that they're going to get a result from their actions. And then that's going to come down to a belief that they believe about themselves. I'm too stupid. I'm not good enough. I don't have the natural talent. I wasn't born at the right time or in the right neighborhood. My parents didn't teach me that. That's why most people fail. There's a great quote by Amelia Earhart. I'll paraphrase. The hard thing is taking the first step. Everything else is just persistence. And I've always loved that quote because it's so true. It doesn't mean that you're going to get it right. It doesn't mean that just because you start, you're going to win. In fact, most likely, the first thing you do, you're going to fail. Think about all the times that you guys tried something and it failed, or the first time when you tried to get the business going and it didn't work, or the first house you tried to sell and nobody went for it, or the first time that you lost money. And the question is, what did you do then? If you learned from it, doubled down, figured it out, focused only on the truth, then you'll move forward. You move forward because you believe you can learn. And that's that thing, hiding in that. And this is the thing when people ask me, hey, my mom or my wife or my husband, whatever, they don't have that belief system. They don't have what Carol Dweck calls a growth mindset. How do I get them there? The answer is you don't, until they are convinced that they can learn anything that they put their mind to, that their energies double down into that area of gaining skills will actually pay off with a real world ability to do something new. They're not going to act.
Kobe Bryant, one of the greatest athletes of our time, would show up on game day, and if he saw anybody else at the gym as early as him, even though he was always the first on the court, he would end up practicing longer than that person. And I had the honor of interviewing one of those people one time. And he said, I went up and asked Kobe, we have a game in an hour. Like, what are you doing out here practicing so long? And Kobe said, I needed you to know that I was willing to outwork you. And in that game, they ended up winning. And that lesson stuck with that guy forever. When you're willing to put in the work, when you're willing to take control of your environment and put yourself through the stressors required for adaptation, you literally can become anything. And my life is proof of that. I hear people talk about luck a lot, and I know that people think about the role that luck plays in their life. But the reality is, luck is all around. Luck is ever present. Luck literally is coming to you every day. It's passing you by. It's happening to you right now. But the question is, are you able to take advantage of the luck? Have you prepared for the luck? And I think that it comes down to we have a misconception about what luck is. We think of luck as something as being passive, that we sit, we wait, we're in some obscure place, and still somehow the luck finds us. But the reality is we're awash in luck. What we're missing is the ability to make use of it. If you have a bunch of bullets but no gun, you really have nothing. If you have a gun but no bullets, the same thing. The magic moment comes together when you have two things that work in conjunction and you have them both. You can't have luck without the diligence. You can't have success without the skills. You've got to spend your life preparing to capitalize on that luck. And to look at what somebody has done, to look at a moment of success in their life and to say that it was luck is to create a frame of reference for you in which you can't see how you yourself could leverage what you have to get lucky.
One thing I want to make really clear, and if you ignore everything else, this is the one where you stop and you pay attention, because this could save years of your life. The game you're playing is not success. The game you're playing is not money. The game you're playing is brain chemistry. The only thing that matters in life, truly, The only thing that matters in life is what you think about yourself when you're by yourself and have nothing but your own thoughts. If in that moment you feel good about who you are, who you're becoming, what you're capable of, and what you're willing to do to make a better future for yourself, those you care about, and other people around you, you will love your life. It is the single most pleasurable neurochemical state is deep fulfillment. Okay? Not happiness. A bowl of ice cream brings me a lot of happiness, but it is a very transient experience. Deep and lasting fulfillment matters, and what that comes down to is how you feel about yourself when you're by yourself.
The piece of advice that I always give to somebody, whether it's an entrepreneur or somebody who wants to be the greatest parent of all time, what is your goal? You've got to start with your goal. Everything works backwards from that. Simon and I did a video that essentially broke the internet about millennials. Somebody watched it. What got Simon on the world stage is this whole concept of why. You've got to know why you're doing what you're doing. If you're just showing up every day to cut and dye hair, to keep your lights on, you're going to have far less energy to make it through the hard times than somebody who is there to help transform somebody, to help make somebody their best, to help them feel their best. And I hope that you guys saw that video not too long ago of the hairdresser that went around and he was doing makeovers on homeless people. Right? Man, it was incredible. It was so beautiful. The look on their face at that moment where they see themselves for the first time in front of the mirror and they are seeing something totally new. They're seeing a version of themselves that they did not know was there. And the ability to give that gift, like it is so easy to get lost in the day-to-day grind of what you do, what any of us do. But if at the core driving you is a deep and unending why for what you're doing, you've got something. Now you've got a chance to transcend what you're doing. And the way that happens is very tactical. It has nothing to do with like woo-woo, being out in the air. It's none of that. You're gonna have the energy that you need to fight through. People always ask me how I generate energy.
We get to decide who we are. There's no objective truth that you're going to find or uncover. You're simply the collection of the things that you believe to be true about yourself. And once you begin to form that opinion of who you are, you'll act in accordance with that belief. You begin to shape a vision of yourself in your own mind, and that becomes the reality. So letting other people influence that, letting other people come in and degrade what you think of yourself is one of the most dangerous and damning things that you could do, because they cloud your ability to craft a vision of the person that you want to become. And that vision is so hard for all of us to hold on to that we have to protect it. We have to keep other people out of that. We've got to have intention in creating the person that we want to become.
You are all hopelessly average by birth. We all are. And that's the great news. Because the most important thing to understand about the human species, we are the ultimate adaptation machine. If you guys were paying attention, not too long ago, they sequenced the human genome and they realized that the human genome has 20,000 genes. And everybody, they thought that they were going to cure cancer, all the diseases, age-related disease, everything, type 1, type 2 diabetes was all going to be a thing of the past. We were going to have it figured out. And then we realized that an onion has more genetic diversity than we do. And how could that be? And so they're literally going, is this really possible? Do we misunderstand something? Like, how is it that an onion has more genetic diversity than we have? And somebody finally said, hey, maybe all this stuff that we've been referring to as junk DNA, maybe it actually plays a role. And then they began to realize that all that junk DNA that was outside of those 20,000 genes that we saw expressing themselves is what is called epigenetics. Now, if you've ever heard of epigenetics, that's amazing. You're way ahead. If you haven't heard of epigenetics, let it become one of the most important things in your life, because epigenetics is what has made us the most dominant species this planet has ever seen. It is the only thing that you need to know. It's what I call the only belief that matters. The only belief that matters is that you can learn anything. I don't need you to believe that you're good now. That doesn't matter. Who you are now is totally irrelevant. The only thing I want to know, who are you willing to become and what's the price you're willing to pay to get there? And that's what humans are designed to do. If you put us under stress, we can learn something new. We can get better.
What are some ways that I can stop giving this negative feedback to myself? Okay, so first of all, you've got to train yourself to use the negative thoughts that you have as a habit loop trigger of something positive. That's the first step to all of this. So I don't think anybody is going to be able to get rid of the negative voice. And even if you could, I actually don't think you would want to. I think the reality is you want to use that as your jujitsu flip to get over to the positive way of thinking, to get into that positive habit loop, to remind yourself that even if you're not good at it yet, you can get good at it, that you're going to learn by whatever you're doing.
I don't think people really realize we construct our lives. We build them from nothing. We decide what our goals are. We decide in what way to move. We decide who we're going to become and what we're going to get. But it's a decision, it's a process. It isn't something that somebody hands to you. And so if you find that your life is a misery, understand that your life is an exact reflection of your choices. And if you want a different life, you need only make a different choice. But I know right now, many of you are thinking, but I don't know what way to go. I don't know what choice to make. I don't know what it is that I want to do. And as Roy Maurice Keane said, I don't believe skill was or ever will be the result of coaches. It is a result of a love affair between the child and the ball. So ask yourself, what's that thing that you love? And don't judge yourself if it was something that you loved as a child that people are telling you you couldn't possibly make money. And it's that part of the equation that I want to break for people. I want you to understand. Stop asking yourself what you can make a lot of money at and start asking yourself, what would you enjoy? What is that life that you don't need to escape from? What is the life that is your love? What is the thing that as a kid you did, whether people wanted you to or not? What is the thing you would sneak out at night to do because you weren't going to be stopped from doing it? Everybody has something like that in their life. Some spark of interest, maybe long dormant, maybe that they've pushed aside because they think it's stupid. Or maybe they failed once and they think they're bad at it. And even though they love it, that sting of the failure has convinced them to stop pursuing it. But at the end of the day, the only thing that matters is what gives you that energy. At the end of the day, the thing that matters is what fills you with joy. At the end of the day, the only thing that matters, it's not success. And it sure as hell isn't money. It's how you feel about yourself when you're by yourself. It's the things that give you energy. It's what you think about yourself. It's how you react to the hard things. It's whether or not you push through. And when you push through, when you persevere, when you go down the process of taking the time to structure your life, to build it into something that you want it to be, to build it into something that you're proud of, to become the person that's capable of the things that you want to do, that can first fall in love with something and do it for the love of it and not worry about what other people think. If you hate your life, I guarantee you the thing is that you are trapped by what other people think. You don't want to give it up because somebody will think you're a failure. You don't want to give it up because it's a paycheck. You don't want to give it up because you're scared. You're scared you don't know what you'll do next. But imagine a world for a second where all you thought about was what do you love? What do you enjoy in that moment? It doesn't matter if it changes from day to day. Just what do you love? What fills you with joy? What gives you that energy? At the end of the day, the only thing that we all have is right now, this moment. It's what you're experiencing. Loving what you do, how you spend your time. That's the point of all of it. The point of life is that. In each transient moment that passes by, doing something that fills you with joy. Nobody can give you that. You've got to build that life. So go out. Figure out what it is that you want to do, and brick by brick, have the courage to build that life. People get stuck. They become so dogmatic. They become so convinced that they're right, and that feeling of being right gives them a sense of self-worth. And I'm telling you right now, with compassion, because I want to see you win, valuing yourself for being right is a trap. Thinking of yourself as smart is a trap. And I get it, man. I know how good it feels when you're right, when you had the right idea and it goes out and it wins. That feels so good. But if you can recognize that over time, it can only paint you into a corner, because the world changes, the world is adapting. The very thing that makes humans the ultimate apex predator is that we adapt. Charles Darwin said, it's not the strongest of the species that survive, nor the most intelligent, but rather the most adaptive to change. You've got to be willing to change. You've always got to be willing to seek out disconfirming evidence. You've got to hunger for it. You've got to want to be proven wrong. You've got to literally invite people into your world that are going to point out flaws in your thinking, because your thinking has already taken you as far as it's going to. So if you want to get farther, if you want to get to that next level, you've got to stop valuing yourself for who you are, what you think, how smart you are, when you're right, when you're wrong. All of that is irrelevant. You've got to value yourself entirely on your willingness to admit that you're wrong. You've got to value yourself on your willingness to learn. You've got to value yourself for your willingness to sit humbly at somebody's feet and seek their wisdom. To not try to be the hero, but instead to try to be the one that collects the knowledge. When you can flip over into that, when you can value yourself for a willingness to stare nakedly at your own inadequacies, you'll start to make progress in life. But no matter how far you've gotten, no matter how much you've won, no matter how certain you are, no matter how much the things you've done in your life have proven to be correct, as Charlie Munger says, you must force yourself to consider arguments on the other side. You can always reject them. You can always look at it and really think about it and say, at the end of the day, it's just not correct. But when you're trying to hold on to your ideas simply because they're your ideas, or simply because they worked in the past, or simply because you like them, you will fall into a trap of dogma, and you'll no longer be able to see fresh ideas and move in new directions. But if you're willing to acknowledge that this world is constantly moving, it's ever changing, the only thing true about the future, always and forever, is that things change. And if your thinking doesn't change, you'll never be able to keep up. So if you want to do something extraordinary with your life, step number one, always seek out that disconfirming evidence. Always look at arguments from the other side. If you're able to do that, then you'll always be able to stay ahead of the curve, and aging won't be a problem because you're going to stay fresh in your mind. You become invincible when you bend and not break, and that's what this kind of mindset will allow you to have. So if you want to win, stop thinking about how you're right and start asking how you're wrong.
If you want 10 more amazing rules from Tom Bilyeu, check out the video right there next to me. I think you'll love it. Continue to believe, and I'll see you there.
The people that win are not the smartest. It is always the people that keep at it. It's the people that persevere.
It does not matter who you are today.